Hello everybody and welcome to another product review by Watchful I Studio. Today we're going to be looking at the Battlefront Miniatures World War III Team Yankee Soviet box set TSB X02, the BMP1 or BMP2 company. Box set contains 5 plastic vehicles retailing for $45. As you can see on the front of the box, you have 4 assembled vehicles, 3 of which are the BMP1s, with the BMP2 variant having the larger turret kind of hiding in the background. The logo showing you the all plastic kit, as well as having the Soviet flag in the lower right hand corner, letting you know which nation these vehicles belong to. Again, down the line, when Battlefront Miniatures gets around to bringing out more Warsaw Pact books and forces, you'll see these vehicles pop back up, probably being options for them as well. Let's take a look at the back of the box. The back cover shows contents with 5 vehicles that you can either make a BMP1 or BMP2, a tank commander sprue, decal sheet, and 5 unit cards. One thing I always like about Battlefront Miniatures is showing the instructions in the back of the box. Although I know with some of these kits, the picture is a little tricky, so I always recommend going onto their website and seeing the more detailed assembly instructions that they have, as well as sometimes they provide videos. But if it's something that you're interested in, I can always do some assembly videos as well. So put those comments in. Maybe that's something we'll do in the future. The one thing that was a little sad about this kit is the fact that because the hulls are different, and obviously the turrets are different as well, it makes it difficult for Battlefront to be able to provide you with the ability of having an either or option like some of the other tank kits that they've done for World War II, like the T-34s or even the Shermans. Of course, you could not glue the top of the main body and just swap it out as needed, but personally I'm going to decide which vehicles I want to field and just make them and not have to worry about that, particularly with the price point being at $45 now. If I had to buy another box just to field BMP1s as either a recon platoon or an OP vehicle or something along those lines, I wouldn't hesitate to do it. Let's open the box, take a look at the sprues. First sprue you see has both main decks for the BMP1 and the BMP2, and make sure when you're building out your vehicles that you clip off the appropriate one. I always reminded myself, if you look at where the turret goes, the turret ring is quite larger for the BMP2. The sprue also has searchlight, the main guns for both the BMP1 and BMP2, as well as the anti-tank missile system and the bottom part of the hull. Let's see what's on the other sprue. The sprue contains both turrets, tracks, cupolas, the pegs for the turrets, smoke launchers, as well as the rear part of the vehicle. Ironically, the sprue contains 2 pegs, essentially allowing you to create not only the top deck of both vehicles, but also the full turrets of both vehicles. So really, Battlefront Miniatures is almost teasing you to say, hey, you can swap out the top parts of these vehicles if you so choose, because we gave you all the parts to do it. So I still think it was pretty cool of them to do that. It's just I'm a little too lazy to worry about swapping out the top parts of the vehicle, not only painting both. So I'll choose probably BMP2s, and that's the direction I'll go. For you guys, you want to do both, Godspeed. Let's take a look at that commander sprue. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. This Soviet commander sprue comes in every vehicle kit. There's 6 different sculpts on the sprue, giving you some variety, and overall I think they look cool in the vehicles. Let's go ahead and take a look at the decals. Decal sheet is a generic Soviet decal sheet, giving you lots of numbers, as well as the Soviet symbol with the flag and the red star. So you can mount these on your vehicles, make them look cool, having some numbers and unit designations. Now let's take a look at the cards and check out all the different things that we can do with these BMPs. One thing we'll get out of the way as we flip through these data cards is that essentially the armaments, the armor themselves, and for the most part the statistics will remain consistent, with the exception of, for example, the OP vehicle, or maybe even some of these scouts may be slightly different, but we'll go over those as we see the differences. But realistically, the armaments themselves and the armor are going to be unchanged. So looking at the BMP1s as scout vehicles, you have a main gun with a decent anti-tank rating for other light vehicles with a firepower of 3+, anti-tank of 12. You have an anti-tank missile that's not bad with an anti-tank rating of a 19, 3+ firepower. And then of course the 7.62 machine gun. The BMP2 2 essentially having the same armor, since basically the body of the vehicle is the same. A slightly better rate of fire on the main gun, but the anti-tank value goes down a little bit. Its anti-tank missile is better, with a 21 anti-tank value and a 3+ firepower. And then, of course, the 7.62 machine gun. Statistics-wise, courage, morale, remount, skill, assault, counterattack, whether you take a BMP-1 scout or a BMP-2 scout, they are essentially the same. I also wanted to show that if you wanted to take a BMP-1 as an observer, you have that option available to you, depending on what type of artillery you field in your force. The one thing you will notice is the only weapon option available to the observer tank is its 7.62 machine gun. Statistics-wise, not much else has changed, other than the fact that its assault and counterattack values are worse, considering that's not the function that they're supposed to be playing on the battlefield. Let's check out the points. The observer is pretty easy to go over. It's 1 point for the vehicle, and realistically, the only reason why you would want to take that vehicle is to be able to range in for your artillery. For the recon platoons, as you can see, you can take 2, 3, or 4 vehicles respectfully, with the BMP-2s being slightly more expensive at each step of the way, but being able to field the same amount of vehicles for either a point or 2 points more and having that higher anti-tank rating for scout vehicles, I think would be worth the extra cost. Let's see what else these BMPs can do. Soviet players have the option of being able to take motor rifle companies being mounted in transports, and the nice thing now about the new Soviet book coming out, you have the option of putting them in either BMP-1s, BMP-2s, or BMP-3s. The BMP-3 is a slightly different vehicle, having different armaments as well as armor ratings, but comparing the BMP-1s and BMP-2s that come in this box set, as you can see, they're essentially the same values as the scout vehicles themselves. The armaments are identical, the front, side, and top armors are identical, and even the courage, morale, remount, skill, assault, and counterattack values are identical to the scout variants. So realistically, when you look at points costs, let's look at the rifle companies and see what the difference in points are based on which vehicle they decide to select. Taking a look at the motor rifle company entries, you can see as far as the infantry teams are concerned, they remain the same. It's just the actual transports themselves are slightly different. A full-strength motor rifle company would be 5 points more fielding them in BMP-2s versus the BMP-1s, and so on and so forth down the line, with a 4-point difference at the medium strength and a 2-point difference at the lesser strength. Ideally, in my opinion, for the 5 extra points to be able to have that higher anti-tank rating on 12 BMP-2s, to me that's probably worth the cost, but depending on whether or not you're trying to field a true horde force with a massive amount of transports, infantry, and tanks, that 5 points could be the difference between fielding a platoon of T-55s or BMP-1s versus BMP-2s. So as a player, you got to determine that. We have one more option to look at for the BMP-2s. Let's have a look at that. One of the new things to come out in the Soviet book is this shock company or shock battalion, being able to field infantry and BMP-2s, being slightly more elite than their other Soviet army counterparts. This option only allows you to take the BMP-2s, and again, the armor on the vehicle and the weapon options remain the same, but the values are slightly better, particularly in the skill rating and assault ratings. Let's see if they're organized any differently and what the points are. Looking at the BMP Shock Motor Rifle Company, you can see that you don't get nearly as many teams as the Motor Rifle Company mounted in BMP-2s, and essentially you're paying the same points cost. So if we do a quick comparison, you get 4 less AK-74 teams, 4 less RPG-7 teams, although the RPG is upgraded. You get 1 less LMG team and half the number of BMP-2s. If you look at the card, it does actually say that they are BMP-3s, but if you look below, you can replace all the shock BMP-3s with shock BMP-2s at -3 points. So essentially you're paying 21 points versus 24 points for a slightly performing better company with less teams. But the one thing I do like about the shock battalion is the elite nature that it has, being able to field less stuff, so it could be easier to get on the battlefield. One thing I've always appreciated about Battlefront miniatures is the ability to make multiple vehicles out of the same kit. Unfortunately, the BMP suffers slightly from the fact that you can only really build either a BMP-1 or a BMP-2 out of a single sprue unless you get creative and magnetize or give yourself the ability to swap out the hulls, as well as the turrets. For me personally, that's a little bit further than I want to go in the hobby, so I selected to build out BMP 2s, which is that nice middle of the road vehicle for the BMP series of vehicles. I intend to have an infantry force mounted in BMP 2s supported by my T-72s, which will be essentially my Soviet horde formation that I'll be building in conjunction with a more elite shock company utilizing the new BMP 3s and T-80s down the line. Overall, because this box set gives you the versatility of fielding BMP 1s or BMP 2s, they still hold incredible value for Soviet players as well as Warsaw Pact players. So for a store, I would recommend carrying at least 2 boxes of these, giving players some options to field these as recon vehicles or for transports for their infantry. The thing to always take in consideration are the amount of transports that is required for fielding your maximum and minimum strength platoons and companies, and with the BMPs this is no exception. Being able to field 12 BMPs for a maxed out platoon would require 3 boxes, giving you 3 extra BMPs to field in a recon platoon, for example. This is something that you can educate your customers, and if you're carrying 2 of these in stock, making sure to have that conversation and let them know that you'll restock those box sets, and as a player, why don't you go home, put together those 10 tanks, and then come back and see me in a week to pick up your other vehicles. I think it's that open communication with your players, letting them know that you can't carry everything in depth, but if you work with them, they work with you, they take their time to hobby and get their things assembled and painted, and then come back for more. It's that happy ground that you need between a successful retail store and happy customers. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Don't forget, let's keep a watchful eye on the hobby. Thanks for watching.